The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was filled with uneasy silence. Leaders of 100 alien worlds sat on shining thrones, their eyes fixed on the giant hologram that floated in the center. It showed a blurry image of something massive moving beyond the edge of the Orion Arm. The thing was not natural. Its outline was too sharp, too perfect, too deadly. For centuries, the galaxy had known peace under the rule of the strongest empires. They believed no power could threaten their fleets, no enemy could shake their unity. But now a strange signal was echoing across every star system. It was deep, metallic, and carried a single word that none wanted to hear: Earth. Many in the council laughed nervously. They remembered Earth as a small and fragile world. Centuries ago, the humans had fought wars they could not win. They were pushed aside, mocked, and finally ignored. The galaxy thought humanity had vanished into silence, but the signal meant only one thing: the humans were back. A reptilian lord named Zalthor stood, his voice sharp as claws. "This is impossible. Humans cannot create such a ship. They are weak. They are broken," he declared. But another alien, a feathered scholar from the Kilari, shook her head. "Do not forget," she said, "humans always survive, even in fire." The debate turned into shouting. Some demanded immediate war, others urged caution. But the council's screens lit up again, and the blurry image became clearer. It was a warship, larger than any ever seen. Its black hull absorbed the light of stars. Its weapons glowed like burning suns. Even the bravest among them felt their hearts freeze. On a distant mining colony, workers gazed at the same ship through old telescopes. They dropped their tools, whispers spreading like wildfire. "The humans have returned," one miner said, his voice shaking. "They have built a ship of vengeance," another added. Panic ran through the colony, for every child knew the tales of humanity's anger. The council demanded reports from scout ships. Dozens were sent to approach the vessel. The scouts mocked the idea that one ship could frighten the galaxy, but soon their signals went silent. One by one, no wreckage, no debris, nothing returned. The great warship floated in silence, watching, waiting. Fear began to spread faster than any fleet could travel. Merchants canceled their routes. Soldiers sharpened their weapons. Priests prayed to their gods, asking for protection. And deep in the hearts of rulers, a single thought grew: if this was humanity's power, then none were safe. On Earth, silence reigned inside the great warship. Rows of soldiers in dark armor stood at attention. Their faces were calm, their eyes hard. In the command chamber, the human captain leaned over the console. He listened to the intercepted alien chatter. He knew the galaxy trembled, and he allowed it. This was only the beginning. Back in the council hall, chaos erupted. "Destroy it before it grows stronger," shouted one leader. "No, we must speak with them first," cried another. But the debate ended when a new signal arrived. The voice was clear, deep, and filled with power. "This is Earth's warship," it said. "We have returned." Every leader fell silent. For the first time in living memory, the galaxy did not laugh at humans. It did not mock them. It did not ignore them. Instead, it trembled. And somewhere in the shadows of the stars, humanity smiled. Because fear was the weapon they had waited for. Because the day had come when the galaxy would learn the truth. The truth that Earth never forgot, never forgave, and never surrendered. The great warship began to move slowly, its engines bending space with every pulse. Alien fleets scattered in panic, unsure whether to attack or flee. The galaxy had known giants, emperors, and tyrants before, but never had it seen a predator like this. The black ship of Earth cut across the void, carrying not just weapons but the weight of vengeance. A small child on a distant moon looked up at the sky. He saw the star trails broken by a moving shadow. His father whispered, "Do not look, child. It is the ship of ghosts." But the boy could not turn away. Something inside him told him the galaxy would never be the same. And so the first chapter of terror was written, not with words, not with treaties, but with silence. The silence of vanished scout ships, the silence of leaders too afraid to speak, the silence of the galaxy as Earth returned. The great warship loomed larger in every story. Each retelling added more fire to the fear, and soon no one cared what the truth was, because the truth was already clear. The humans had come back, and the galaxy trembled in fear. The galaxy had always carried stories about humanity. Most were told as jokes, whispered in taverns and marketplaces. Humans were painted as reckless, emotional, and fragile. They were remembered as a species that fought bravely, but lost everything. But now, with the arrival of Earth's warship, those old stories began to change. In the archives of the Kilari scholars, dusty scrolls told of ancient battles. They described humans fighting against overwhelming odds. Even when their cities burned and their fleets shattered, they never begged for mercy. A single human warrior was said to hold the line until his last breath. And though the empires mocked them, they also feared that one day humans might rise again. Lord Zalthor of the reptilian clans walked alone in his chamber. He remembered his great-grandfather's warnings. Never underestimate the humans, the old warrior had once said. They bleed, yes, but they do not break. Now Zalthor felt that truth crawling in his bones. The sight of the warship haunted him. It was not just a machine, it was a symbol that the nightmare had returned. Across the stars, alien civilians whispered their own fears. Merchants closed their shops, fearing human retribution. Mothers warned their children not to speak the word Earth. Priests told stories of a cursed species that carried fire in their hearts, and slowly fear began to spread like a plague. The galaxy realized that every tale of human survival might not have been an exaggeration. Perhaps they were prophecies. In a hidden bunker deep beneath the surface of an icy moon, the Council's secret intelligence group gathered. They replayed recordings from the vanished scouts. Only fragments remained. Flashes of blinding light, screams and silence. The last image showed a single glowing eye on the hull of the warship. It stared at them like a god watching ants. Even the hardened spies refused to watch the footage twice. Meanwhile, in the command chamber of the human warship, Captain Elias Kane stood before the star map. His officers worked in silence, their movements sharp and precise. Every order was followed without hesitation. The warship pulsed with hidden energy. It was more than a vessel. It was a fortress. Elias looked at the galaxy map and marked the locations of old enemies. His voice was calm, yet it carried iron. "We are not here for conquest," he said. "We are here to finish what was started." Back on the Council's capital world, chaos erupted in the streets. Protests shook the towering spires. Some shouted for war, demanding fleets be built to crush humanity. Others begged for peace, arguing that one ship had already destroyed dozens. And in the middle of it all, spies whispered of darker secrets. What if Earth had built not one ship, but many? What if the warship they saw was only the messenger? The galaxy drowned in rumors, and rumors were always more dangerous than truth. The council leader, High Chancellor Vera, stood before her assembly. Her voice trembled, though she tried to appear strong. "We cannot ignore this threat," she said. "History has shown us the madness of humans. They will burn everything in their path." But one old senator rose slowly, his eyes shadowed with memory. "You are wrong," he said. "Humans do not burn for conquest. They burn for survival." The chamber erupted, some in agreement, others in rage. And while they argued, the warship moved. It slid across the void with terrifying grace. No broadcasts, no demands, no declarations. Its silence was more frightening than any threat, because silence meant confidence, and confidence meant power. On a forgotten outpost near the Galactic rim, a group of young soldiers stood watch. They saw the black shadow appear in the sky. One soldier tried to laugh it off. "It's only one ship," he said, but his voice cracked and his hands shook. The others remained silent, for deep in their hearts, they knew what no leader would admit. If humans had returned, the galaxy's age of comfort was over. Then, without warning, the warship sent a signal across the stars. It was not a demand, not a threat. It was a memory. The signal replayed the ancient battles where humans had fought against extinction. It showed soldiers standing until their last breath. It showed burning cities where children were carried out of the fire. It showed the unbroken spirit of a species that refused to die. Every empire that received the signal felt its heart turn cold. Because this was not just history, it was a promise. And as the images faded, Captain Elias whispered to his crew, "They think they remember us as weak," he said, Let them remember us as survivors. His words echoed through the steel halls of the warship, and outside the stars seemed to tremble. The galaxy's laughter was gone. The galaxy's arrogance was gone. In its place was silence, the silence of a predator returning to its hunting ground. The memories of humanity were no longer whispers in old books. They were alive again, carried on the wing. Is of a single warship, and the galaxy realized with horror that it was not facing one machine. It was facing the spirit of an entire world. A spirit that had waited in the dark for centuries, a spirit that would not stop until justice was done. And so the fear grew deeper, because fear built on memory is the strongest kind. And every race in the galaxy now remembered the same thing, that humanity never forgets, and humanity never forgives. The council could no longer wait. Fear had spread too far, and whispers of human vengeance were breaking the balance of power. So they gathered the strongest fleets from 3 empires and sent them into the void. Thousands of ships, glowing with weapons and banners of pride. They believed numbers alone could crush one shadow. They believed humanity's return could be ended in a single strike. At the edge of the Perseus arm, the fleets gathered like a storm. The admirals sat on golden thrones within their flagships. Their voices echoed across channels, mocking the humans. "Come out, weaklings," one shouted. "Your ship will be stripped apart, and your ashes scattered." Laughter rolled through the fleet, but beneath the laughter was unease, because the warship remained silent, watching from the dark. Then slowly, the black shape emerged. It moved without sound, without broadcast. Its hull shimmered with strange energy, and as it approached, the stars themselves seemed to dim. The alien admirals ordered their gunners to prepare. "Show them the strength of the galaxy," they commanded. A rain of fire erupted from the fleets. Missiles, beams, plasma, all launched at once. The void blazed with colors brighter than suns. But when the light cleared, the warship was still there, untouched, unmoved, and unbroken. The alien crews froze in horror. Their weapons meant nothing. From the warship's surface, lines of light began to glow. They pulse, edge slowly like the heartbeat of a predator. Then with one strike, the warship answered. A single beam tore through space. It cut an entire fleet in half as if it were paper. Hundreds of ships vanished in fire. Thousands of voices screamed, then were silenced. The admirals could only stare. They had believed in numbers, but numbers were dust before this power. Panic spread. Some captains tried to retreat, their engines blazing with fear. Others pushed forward in desperation, but the warship moved like a hunter among prey. Every shot was precise. Every strike was final. No wasted energy, no mercy. It was as if the ship itself could read the minds of its enemies, anticipating every move before it happened. Inside the human warship, Captain Elias Kane stood calm. His officers reported in steady voices. "No damage sustained," one said. "Enemy fleets reduced by 70%, another confirmed." Elias nodded, his eyes cold. "Do not annihilate them all," he said. "Let some live to carry the story." Back among the burning wreckage, the survivors wept. They sent frantic messages to the council. "Do not fight them," one admiral cried. "It is not a ship, it is a god." His transmission ended in static as his flagship was torn apart. On alien homeworlds, the images spread faster than light. Citizens crowded around screens. They watched their proud fleets vanish in fire. They saw one human ship stand against thousands, and in that moment, the galaxy's arrogance died. For centuries, they had called humans weak. Now they whispered another word, unstoppable. The council chamber erupted in chaos once more. Some leaders demanded total war, building new fleets and weapons. Others collapsed in despair, claiming resistance was suicide. But all agreed on one truth. The humans had shown their strength, and the galaxy would never forget it. Back on the warship, Elias gave new orders. "Set course for the council's nearest world," he said. "We have delivered the warning. Now we deliver the message." His office. Ears obeyed without hesitation, and the warship moved once again, a shadow swallowing the stars. On a distant agricultural planet, a farmer looked up at the night sky. He saw a streak of fire as wreckage from the battle fell into his fields. He picked up a piece of alien metal still burning with heat. His hands trembled as he whispered, "The stories are true. The humans are here." The galaxy had witnessed many wars, but none like this, because wars were usually fought between equals. This was not a war. This was a reminder that humanity had returned from the ashes, and their return would not be ignored. The few surviving alien ships limped back to their worlds, their captains broken, their eyes hollow. They spoke of the beam that cut through entire fleets. They spoke of silence that killed faster than any weapon. And worst of all, they spoke of the human captain, a man who spared them not out of mercy, but to spread fear. And so, with every retelling, the terror grew. The warship was no longer just a machine. It became a legend. The children of 100 worlds whispered its name at night, and parents had no comfort to give them. For once, the parents were just as afraid. The galaxy now knew what the scouts had learned too late, that Earth's warship was not a shadow to mock, it was the storm. And storms did not ask for permission to arrive. They simply came, and they destroyed. The survivors of the first battle limped home with broken ships. Their voices carried through the galaxy, spreading tales of horror. They spoke of beams that cut through fleets like knives through paper. They spoke of silence that froze hearts more than any weapon. And worst of all, they spoke of the human warship, a shadow that refused to fall. On the Council's capital world, chaos raged like wildfire. Crowds filled the streets, shouting and screaming. Some demanded war, their fists raised high. Others fell to their knees, begging their leaders to surrender. Shops were closed, temples were overflowing, and soldiers patrolled with fear in their eyes. The galaxy had never seen fear spread this fast. But then came the moment that turned fear into terror. Without warning, the warship appeared in orbit over a core world. It was not a border colony, not an outpost. It was a shining jewel of the Council, a place thought untouchable. Skies that once glowed with peaceful traffic now darkened beneath its shadow. Millions of eyes turned upward and froze. The warship's hull was like night itself. Its engines pulsed like a heartbeat across the heavens. It did not fire. It did not speak. It only watched. Alarms screamed through the capital. Fleets scrambled to form defenses, but the admirals hesitated, their hands trembling. They remembered what had happened to the last fleet. They remembered how quickly their pride had burned to ash, and so they waited, paralyzed between duty and terror. In the great council chamber, leaders shouted over one another. "Attack it now!" roared one. "If we strike first, we might have a chance." "No," argued another. "If we attack, we doom ourselves. We must talk to them." The hall was filled with fear, not strategy. They were rulers of empires, yet none dared make the first move. Meanwhile, in the streets, panic grew. Parents clutched their children, pointing at the sky. Priests fell into the dust, calling upon their gods. Merchants burned their own records, fearing the warship might strike their homes. And in every corner of the world, one whisper echoed, "The humans have come." Inside the warship, Captain Elias Kane stood at the viewing deck. Below him stretched the alien capital world, its cities glowing like fireflies. His officers waited for orders. Some expected him to destroy it in a single strike. Others wondered if he would speak at last. But Elias remained silent, his eyes hard, his thought is hidden. Hours passed, and the galaxy held its breath. The warship simply hovered, unshaken by the panic below. Every passing second was torture for the people. The silence was heavier than any bombardment, because silence gave the imagination room to grow, and imagination created terror greater than reality. In the shadows of the council chamber, one ancient leader rose. His voice was low but steady. "Do you not see," he said, "the humans do not fire because they do not need to. They already have what they want, our fear." His words fell like stones into the hall, for everyone knew he was right. Still, some leaders clung to pride. One admiral ordered a fleet to rise against the warship. Hundreds of ships launched, their engines blazing. The people cheered desperately. But before the fleet could even reach orbit, the warship pulsed once. A wave of invisible energy swept across the sky, and the entire fleet shut down, powerless. Ships fell like dead birds back into the atmosphere. Some crashed into oceans, others into empty plains, but all of them fell. And the warship had not even fired a single weapon. Terror consumed the world. Citizens ran through the streets screaming. The council fell into silence, and across the stars the story spread. A single warship had humbled an empire without lifting a blade. The galaxy had no word for such power, so they created one. They called it the Black Judgment. The name carried from planet to planet like a curse. But Elias did not care about names. He stood on his deck, listening to the cries of the alien world. His officers awaited his command. "Shall we destroy them?" one asked. Elias shook his head. "No, not yet," he said. "Fear will break them faster than fire." And so the warship turned away, leaving the world shaking in terror. It did not conquer, it did not enslave, it simply left. But the scars it left behind were deeper than any weapon, because now every world in the galaxy knew at any moment the warship could appear above them, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. Children cried themselves to sleep, soldiers refused to look at the sky, and rulers whispered in secret halls. Each one asked the same question: what do the humans want? But no answer came, only silence. And silence was worse than death. The galaxy, once proud and united, now stood fractured, drowning in panic, because one truth was clear: the humans had not just returned, they had returned as masters of fear. The galaxy had fallen into panic. Every world now watched the skies with fear. Every empire whispered the same question: what do the humans want? The warship had destroyed fleets, humbled empires, and left without striking final blows. It was not conquest, it was not random destruction, it was something far more dangerous. Inside the warship, silence ruled. The steel corridors hummed with energy. Rows of armored soldiers marched in perfect order, their eyes cold, their steps steady. They were not like the humans the galaxy once knew. These were not weak, desperate survivors. These were warriors shaped by centuries of preparation. In the command chamber, Captain Elias Kane stood before his officers. The star map glowed before him, showing countless systems. His voice was calm, but sharp. "We will not destroy them all," he said. "We will reveal to them why we are here." His crew remained silent, waiting, because they knew their mission was more than vengeance. Back in the council's secret halls, leaders argued day and night. Some demanded total war, others begged for surrender. But a spy from the Kilari brought strange intelligence. She had intercepted fragments of human transmissions. They spoke of something hidden, something buried in the silence of time. The words were few, but they shook the council. Operation Guardian, the humans had called it, the Council. Il demanded answers. What is this operation? What are they hiding? But no one knew. The name alone was enough to sow doubt, because fear of the unknown was greater than fear of any weapon. Meanwhile, in the warship's lower decks, rows of massive chambers held something even more terrifying. Not weapons, not bombs, but stasis pods. Inside them lay humans, scientists, doctors, children, entire generations preserved, waiting. The warship was not just a battleship, it was a city, a seed of Earth carried across the stars. Elias walked through the chambers in silence. He looked at the frozen faces of the young and the old. They were not soldiers. They were the heart of humanity. He whispered quietly, "We carry our future within us. We do not come to destroy. We come to survive." Back in the galaxy, rumors spread like wildfire. Some spies reported that the warship carried a hidden weapon. Others swore it carried a dead world inside its hull. But the truth was more dangerous. The humans were not only fighting for vengeance, they were fighting to reclaim their place among the stars. The council sent another desperate transmission, this time not of threats, but of questions. "Why have you returned? What do you seek?" The warship answered at last. The voice of Elias echoed across the galaxy. "We seek justice," he said, "and we seek protection. Not for us alone, but for all who cannot fight." The words rippled through the stars like thunder. Many did not believe him. They claimed it was a trick, but others felt a strange tremor in their hearts. Could it be that humans, the most feared species in memory, had returned not only for war, but to stand as guardians on smaller, weaker worlds? Hope flickered. Refugees whispered that perhaps the humans would protect them from cruel empires. Slaves prayed that the warship might one day arrive above their chains, and even some ruler began to question had they misjudged humanity all along, but fear did not vanish. Because with every promise of protection came another shadow. If the humans wished to protect, then who would they destroy to prove it? If they offered justice, then who would pay the price? Inside the warship, Elias studied his maps again. He marked not only the empires that had mocked Earth, but also the worlds that had cried for help for centuries, the worlds abandoned by the Council. His officers watched in silence as he drew paths of fire and salvation across the galaxy. "We are not conquerors," Elias said. "We are the shield, but a shield must strike when the sword falls." The council panicked at his words, because they knew what shield meant in human terms. It meant alliances, it meant rebellion, it meant that the weak would now look to humans instead of the council. Power itself was shifting, and they were powerless to stop it. Across the stars, stories grew. Children no longer whispered only of terror, they whispered of guardianship. They whispered that the humans had returned to protect as much as to punish. And in those whispers lay the most dangerous weapon of all, hope, because hope spreads faster than fear, and hope can topple empires. The galaxy now trembled not only because of the warship's fire, but because of the hidden truth that was rising behind it, that humanity was not only back for vengeance, they were back to claim their destiny. And as the warship glided across the dark, its shadow falling over another world, Elias whispered the words that would one day echo through all history. "We are Earth, and we have returned not as prey, but as guardians." The galaxy could no longer hide behind whispers. The stories of humanity's return had turned into hard reality. Empires had fallen silent. Colonies prayed in fear. But one empire refused to bow, the Dravari Dominion, the oldest and most ruthless power of the stars. For 1,000 years, the Dravar, I ruled with iron claws. They crushed rebellions, enslaved weaker races, and silenced anyone who dared to resist. They had always believed themselves invincible, and now they saw humanity's rise as a direct challenge to their throne. Their emperor, a towering figure wrapped in golden armor, declared his decree. "The humans will kneel or they will burn. We are the masters of this galaxy, and no ghost from Earth will change that." Within weeks, the largest fleet in galactic history was assembled. Millions of ships filled the dark, dreadnoughts the size of continents, carriers filled with endless drones, weapons forged in the cores of dying stars. The sight of the fleet alone could make worlds surrender, and now all of it was aimed at one warship. Inside the human warship, Captain Elias Kane stood calm. His crew reported the numbers. Enemy fleets beyond counting, their formation covers entire sectors. But Elias did not flinch. He looked at the stars and whispered, "Let them come. One warship is enough." The battle began with a roar that shook the void. The Dravari unleashed storms of fire, energy blasts brighter than suns, missiles faster than light. The void became a sea of explosions, but when the smoke cleared, the human warship still stood. Its shields shimmered like living light, its hull scarred but unbroken. The Dravari admirals screamed for more. Their fleets pressed harder, waves upon waves of destruction, but the warship danced through the fire like a predator through the forest. Every strike it delivered shattered thousands of ships. Every beam cut holes in fleets the size of nations. It was not just fighting, it was hunting. Inside the command chamber, silence reigned. The crew moved with perfect discipline. Every order was carried out without hesitation. They were not fighting for conquest. They were fighting for survival, for justice. And their unity turned the warship into something greater than steel. It became the will of humanity itself. On alien worlds across the galaxy, citizens watched the battle through secret transmissions. They saw the Dravari armada crumble piece by piece. They saw the warship hold its ground against impossible odds. And for the first time in centuries, they saw hope. The Dravari Emperor raged in his throne room. His claws tore at the golden armrests. "How can one ship resist my empire?" he roared. But deep inside, he already knew the answer. It was not just one ship, it was Earth. It was the spirit of a species that never forgot, never forgave. The battle raged for hours. The void filled with wreckage, with fire, with the echoes of dying empires. But still the warship moved forward, slowly, steadily. It carved a path through the armada, until at last it stood face to face with the Dravari Emperor's flagship. The Emperor himself appeared on the channels, his golden armor glowing, his voice like thunder. "Human," he growled, "you think you can defy me? You think you can stand against 1,000 years of dominion?" Captain Elias appeared on the screen, his face calm. "We do not think," he said, "we know. And today your dominion ends." The warship unleashed its final strike, a storm of light that cut through the Emperor's fleet. The flagship itself trembled, its shields collapsing. The Dravari screamed in fury, but his empire crumbled before his eyes, and then came the moment the galaxy would never forget. The Emperor fell to his knees, not because of chains, not because of destruction, but because he realized the truth. Humanity had returned not as victims, not as prey, but as the new power of the stars. Across the galaxy, silence spread. The war was over, the Dravari were broken, and the humans stood unchallenged. But Elias did not order conquest. He did not demand crowns or thrones. Instead, his voice echoed through every world. We do not come to rule, we come to prot. We come to bring justice where there is none. The galaxy listened in stunned silence. Some wept with relief, others trembled with fear. But all knew one thing: the age of arrogance was over. The age of humanity had begun. The final stand of the Dravari was written into history, not as the fall of an empire, but as the rise of Earth, a rise that no one could stop. And somewhere in the endless dark, the warship drifted silently, its shadow stretching across the stars, a reminder that humanity had returned, and the galaxy would never be the same. The war was over. The Dravari Dominion, the strongest empire in the galaxy, had fallen to its knees. The wreckage of millions of ships drifted silently through the void. Fleets that once ruled the stars now floated like broken bones, and in the center of it all, the warship of Earth still stood, black and unbroken. At first, there was only silence. Every world waited, holding its breath. Would the humans now take the throne? Would they enslave the galaxy, as the Dravari once did? Would they demand crowns, tributes, and endless submission? But then the voice of Captain Elias Khan spread across the stars. It carried not pride, not cruelty, but steady iron. We did not come for conquest, he said. We did not return to build empires of chains. We came because the galaxy has forgotten justice. We came because the weak cry and no one answers. From this day, humanity will answer. The words shook the galaxy more than any weapon. Worlds that had trembled in terror now wept in hope. Slaves on distant planets whispered prayers of freedom. Colonies abandoned for centuries looked to the sky again. And even rulers who once mocked humanity lowered their heads because they felt something stronger than fear. They felt respect. In the council's chamber, silence fell. The same leaders who once laughed at humanity now sat with eyes low. Weird, one elder finally stood, his voice trembling. For centuries we thought of humans as reckless and weak, but today we see the truth. They are not weak, they are the shield we could never be. No one argued, because deep inside, they all knew he was right. On alien homeworlds, children no longer asked, will the humans destroy us? Instead they asked, will the humans protect us? The story of Earth's warship spread not as a tale of terror, but as a legend of survival. The humans had not come to enslave, they had come to remind the galaxy of courage. Inside the warship, Elias stood in the stasis chambers once more. He looked at the frozen faces of children and elders, the future of Earth resting within steel. He whispered softly, they will not grow in fear, they will grow in respect. They will live in a galaxy that knows the meaning of justice again. The warship continued its journey, not to conquer worlds, but to visit those abandoned by the Council. It arrived above forgotten colonies where people lived in chains. It destroyed the chains, not the people. It stood as a wall between tyrants and the helpless. And in every act, fear began to transform. At first, the galaxy called the warship Black Judgment. But slowly, they gave it a new name. They called it the Guardian of Stars. A name whispered not with terror, but with reverence. Even the Dravari, broken and defeated, sent envoys to Earth. Their emperor, once proud and cruel, walked humbly before Elias. He lowered his head and said, once we ruled with fear, but you have shown us another path. From this day, we will bow not to chains, but to justice. Elias gave no smile, no words of pride. He only answered with quiet strength. Then rise and never forget what fear has taught you. And so the galaxy changed, empires shifted, borders blurred, but the shadow of Earth's warship remained, not as a curse, but as a reminder that humanity had returned, and with them had returned something the galaxy thought forever lost: respect, the Dialfotos. Why fear became respect was written in every history. It was taught in every school. It was sung in every song. Not as the day humanity crushed the galaxy, but as the day they gave it hope. On a distant world, a child looked up at the sky. He saw the black warship pass like a silent star. His mother knelt beside him and whispered, "Do not fear, child. That is the guardian of stars. It does not come to harm. It comes to watch over us." And in that simple whisper lay the truth of it all. The galaxy no longer trembled in terror. It bowed in respect, because humanity had taught it a lesson that would never be forgotten. That true power was not in fire, it was in the courage to stand when all others had fallen. And so the warship sailed on, carrying Earth's spirit through the endless dark, its shadow stretching over 1,000 worlds, a reminder forever carved into the stars, that humanity never forgot, never forgave, but above all, humanity never surrendered.